All right, welcome to chapter 6 here, where I go over the vitality foods. And this chapter is relatively short. We just kind of go over the 4 food groups, and you have your food pyramid in here, vitality food pyramid. So in this little summary, I just want to really go over the best sources of carbohydrates, protein, and fat. So just going to kind of illustrate it a little differently. Okay, so best carbohydrates, as you read about in this book, are going to be your fruits. We got a list of them here. Obviously, there's a lot more fruits than listed, but just to give you an idea: apples, apricots, bananas, berries, cherries, dates, grapefruit, melons, nectarines, oranges, papaya, peaches, pears, pineapple, plums, right? There's so many great choices out there when it comes to fruits. For people that may not live in a place where you can have access to fruits during the winter, what's traditionally there's like people would make jams and jellies with fruit so that they could store it through the winter. So that is definitely an option, is to use jams and jellies, especially if you have the ability to make them. But obviously you also can buy good quality jams and jellies. Raw almond milk, raw almond milk, raw animal milk, not almond milk, raw animal milk, excellent source of carbohydrates. Dairy is actually, we kind of consider it the perfect food, because if you have a glass of milk, you're basically getting the best carbs, the best protein, and the best fat. But I don't consider store-bought milk. It's not milk. It's been pasteurized. The animals that they're getting the milk from are basically half dead. I mean, it's not milk. I don't know what you want to call it, but it's not. And that's where we have seen that why people don't have tolerance for milk is because it's not milk, right? If you actually get the real stuff, and again, if you haven't had raw milk before, you always want to go slowly. And depending on your current state of health, it might make sense, it might not. But anytime you start to introduce, especially something like raw milk, into your diet, you want to go slowly, because it is just jam-packed full of minerals and highly nutritious. And if you don't want to go too fast with that kind of stuff, just because your system's not used to it, as crazy as that may sound. All right, so raw animal milk, tubers, basically vegetables that are below the ground, and below the ground vegetables are better because they don't have to have anti-nutrient things that prevent animals from eating them, because they're below the ground. A lot of above the ground vegetables have certain anti-nutrients and substances to deter animals from eating them. It's a protective mechanism, okay? But these tubers, which are below the ground, are better because they don't have those unhelpful and sometimes harmful substances to our metabolic system. So potatoes, carrots, beets, pumpkin, squash, yams, cucumbers, parsnips, turnips, radishes. I will tell you, it's very rare, I would say very rare, that I go a day without having some type of potato. And I'm talking white potatoes, the good old Yukon Gold potatoes. Sure, sweet potatoes are great thrown in there, but I'm talking about real potatoes, and I eat a ton of potatoes. Okay, our whole family does. And when I'll share, one of our favorite things to do is to make French fries. Yes, I said French fries. Okay, what do? We take potatoes and we fry them in coconut oil. Delicious. Delicious. We have probably homemade French fries in our house at least, it definitely once a week. No question about it. Delicious. Delicious. Okay. So tubers, phenomenal source of carbohydrate. The second level of carbs, I'm sorry, other great sources of fruit of carbohydrates: honey, cane sugar, maple syrup. So yes, when we look at any type of food, looking at their ingredients, if they add honey, cane sugar, maple syrup, it goes on it's on the yes list. Uh, I'm going to list all the artificial sweeteners, things that our sugar gets blamed for, right? But it's not sugar. This is real sugar, and this is great. Honey, cane sugar, maple syrup. totally fine. I put cane sugar and or honey sometimes in my coffee, in my tea, every day. All right. Maple syrup is another. Again, you got to always assume this is the real stuff. Okay. There's definitely maple syrup out there that has all kinds of artificial sweeteners in it and garbage. So I'm talking about the real stuff. Here's the cautionary stuff, and it's in orange for a reason. These are sources of carbs, but I'd be very cautious with them. Okay. Grains, nuts, and seeds, nightshades, and cruciferous vegetables, and beans. These are things that some of you it might make sense to eliminate. Some of you, this could be on the red list. I know for me, beans, nuts, and cruciferous vegetables are on my red list. I do not do well with those. My vitality markers drop when I eat those types of things. I'm okay with nightshades. Tomatoes and peppers for me are fine. Some people they're not. And grains I have to be mindful of. But we get homemade sourdough bread. We're lucky enough to have somebody here in town that literally makes homemade. He made a homemade sourdough starter years ago, and he's been basically makes this incredible sourdough bread. And so that's basically what our family eats, which is much easier to digest because of the process of going through making that sourdough starter. So, but everybody's a little different here. So that's why I put this in caution. Some of these things for you could be in red. I would say that the ones that are probably more reddish for most people are the beans, the nuts, and the seeds. Okay. So just saying, just something to be mindful of. But again, everybody's different. You gotta go through the process of trying all this stuff. Okay. Best protein sources. We just talked about it. Buffalo, lamb, and cow products. Obviously there's all the different steaks, burgers, ribs, chops. Again, quality is so important. And then organ meats, low-fat fish, and shellfish. The reason why low-fat fish is because fish, because they're in water, are mostly unsaturated fat, okay? And they're unsaturated fat because when in colder climates, unsaturated fat is solid, okay? But as I said in the book, at room temperature, unsaturated fats are in liquid form. Saturated fats are in solid form. So if I'm a fish and I'm in colder climates, unsaturated fat makes sense because it'll stay in a solid form if it's cold. Okay, but as the temperature rises, that turns into liquid, and the tolerance for heat is less, which is why unsaturated fats you got to be careful with, right? Because as soon as you add a lot of heat and oxygen, it becomes rancid. That's why fish can smell so terrible, right? If it's not fresh, and that's rancidity. Okay, so we want to be mindful when we're eating fish. That's why low-fat fish, organ meats, shellfish, because you're basically eating the whole animal, so there's a lot of minerals like in shrimp. But again, quality is such a huge one here. Okay, we talked a little bit about dairy and eggs, milk, cheese, and eggs. Phenomenal sources of protein. Eggs, and please eat the yolk. My God, it's like the most nutritious part of the egg. This whole egg white thing. Trust me, I used to do it. I used to have the cartons of egg whites, and I mean, oh God, it just makes me sick thinking about it. And I'd shake the carton up and pour the egg whites and make egg white omelets when I was, working out and had to get my protein in, but I didn't want to get any of that terrible yolk. It's like, oh God. So eat the whole egg. The yolk is really the most nutritious part. There's about 4 grams of protein in the white, about 3 grams of protein in the yolk, but the yolk has all the nutrients in it. So eating eggs, cheese, and milk, great sources for protein. And then I mentioned the animal bone broths. Liquid gold, as I said in the last video, okay? Protein sources to be mindful of. I mentioned poultry. pork and fatty fish for all the same reasons. There's just a higher unsaturated fat content, so you just want to be a little bit more mindful about how much of this you eat. And for sure, across the board here, quality is so important. And fish for sure, because our oceans, unfortunately, are becoming so toxic. It's hard to get good quality fish now. But poultry, pork, and fatty fish, kind of in the cautionary. Bass fat sources, we just went over that. Butter, coconut oil, milk, cheese, cream, tallow, and lard. Okay, those are basically all the fats from the ideal muscle meats. And then monounsaturated fats like olive oil and the other ones listed. Great sources of fat. Okay, so the avoid list. Things that I would like. I don't think there's a person on the planet that these things wouldn't be on the list of avoid. Like everybody should avoid these things as much as possible. As I mentioned, polyunsaturated oils, avoid. Just cut them out would be my recommendation. These are the big ones. Again, just look at your ingredients, look at your labels. I'm telling you, you're going to eliminate a lot of the stuff in your house. Artificial sweeteners, man, this stuff is so dangerous. High fructose corn syrup or any type of corn, sugar, aspartame, saccharin, sucralose, alpha-flame K. I mean, a lot of these have other names for it, like Equal and what's the other one I can't think of. But there's lots of different artificial sweeteners because sugar's bad. This is what you're going to find in there. There's a lot of energy drinks that have sucralose in them. I didn't get into all this in the book, but I mean, just look up the side effects of this stuff. And not to mention, some of these substances are like 5,000 times as sweet as sugar. And so if you're consuming a lot of these artificial sweeteners, it gets to the point where a beautiful, delicious apple isn't sweet enough for us anymore. Like our body's like, yeah, this doesn't get the job done because we're used to stuff. Now we've been conditioning the body to expect something that's 5,000 times sweeter than cane sugar. Yikes. This is where we literally become dependent on chemicals. Scary stuff. Okay. And then fat substitutes, very similar. Any kind of emulsifiers like carrageenan and gums, trans fats like margarine, Crisco, these are just fake fats. Just think of them that way. They're fake fats because there's this idea that fat's bad, sugar's bad, salt's bad. I mean, calories are bad, right? The whole diet and exercise model. But we're not going to eat something that doesn't taste salty, fat, or sweet because our body craves salt, sweet, and fatty for a reason because we need those things, okay? The body doesn't crave things because it's trying to kill itself, right? It craves it because it needs it. But then we trick the body with all this garbage, right? And then we blame sugar for it. And we blame fat for it. No. This is what we really need to be blaming here. This is what's creating sickness and disease, not real food, all right? And so that just kind of brings me to the systemic summary. I know it's a lot. I'm giving you guys a lot of stuff here. Trying to give you as much resource and support as possible with all this stuff. But I also hope you know that there's lots of other support. Like if any of this stuff gets to be too much for you, please visit the additional support part of this of your module here. Lots of other ways to get support from us. Lots of things that we offer. So systemic summary, 5 variables to create systemic vitality: sleep, getting outside, nutrition, mental and emotional, and movement. Those are the 5 things that are going to put your system in that vibrant ecosystem, as I shared at the beginning of this of the last chapter. That vibrant ecosystem. Those are the 5 things that are going to make that up. Remember to make Vitality Big 6 the reference point. So don't just my scale, my blood work, my scale, my blood work. It's like, okay, that's part of the equation. But the Vitality Big 6, right? Sleep, energy levels, digestion, mental acuity, emotional acuity, satiety. Those are things you want to also tune into, okay? And make sure that you're paying attention to, because that's really an indication of how vital you are, right? How much of a life of vitality are you living, okay? Best macros, just a quick summary: carbs, simple sugars; protein, whole animal; fat, saturated. See how simple that is? Right? But that's just a quick and dirty, right? Best macros. And then the biggest impact on vitality that we have found, again, just to reiterate, is when people eliminate beans, legumes, grains, and PUFAs. All right. When you eliminate those things, usually we see the biggest uptick in vitality for people. The quickest way to kind of jumpstart things is just eliminate the things that are inhibiting or interfering with optimizing your metabolism and systemic vitality. Awesome. All right. So you made it through the systemic part of the chapter, of the book. Again, remember, please, if you have questions or comments, feel free to engage here. And again, if at any time you're looking for more support and how to implement these things, go to the support part of this course that you have, and we're here to help. Now we're going to head into creating vitality in the mind and aligning our biology with our mindset with our biology. So chapter 7, big one. So go take a second, maybe run to the bathroom, have a glass of water, grab a piece of fruit, and I'll see you in chapter 7 summary.